All right, let's do it. Let's talk about John Kruk. And I mean, where can I begin when talking about this man? In fact, where can anyone begin when highlighting this man's career? Do you start with his uniquely underrated MLB career, or do you begin with his one-of-a-kind career in the booth? Or what kind of image and personality John had? Considering a guy by the name of Austin Gold 4 years ago published a video of Kruk with the description reading, quote, "The most unhealthy, disgusting, fat, greasy, funny, most fantastic baseball player of all time," end quote. And well, for the sake of this video, you have to start from the beginning, which only makes sense. But trust me, I wish I could sit here and yap about things John Kruk says on NBC Sports Philadelphia in the booth during games, and I mean, just listen to this real quick.
He found his girlfriend cheating. He burned up her car with her and her boyfriend.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
But we'll get back to that one later. And all right, the intro's over now, so buckle up for this one because it's a wild one, it's a fun one, and I hope you guys enjoy. As always, really quick, my name is IcyVert. Welcome back to Stark Raving Sports, and if you're new here, please do not forget to drop a like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you're a baseball fan, there's a chance you've seen John Kruk around baseball in some type of way before, but what you probably don't know is how funny, interesting, and overall underappreciated his life as both a ball player and media personality are. So, who was John Kruk as a baseball player? Well, John Kruk appeared in exactly 1,200 games. He had a career batting average of exactly 300 and hit exactly 100 home runs. He was a 3-time All-Star and had absolutely respectable batting splits, and if I'm honest, a very sneaky 25.1 WAR in his career. And listen, I understand if you did not realize John Kruk was as good as he is, because truly, does this look like an elite ball player? All right, well, maybe. But does this? Well, probably not as much, but my God, did Kruk know how to rock that mullet. A mullet so iconic, it was featured on SNL by Chris Farley in a skit titled Philadelphia Slobs, because that's how iconic that damn mullet was.
What's up, Chief? What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in Toronto tonight?
Kruk's time in San Diego was mostly uneventful, as these Padres teams from 1986 to 1989 were a special mix of mediocre and awful. However, he was able to string together some impressive seasons with above average batting lines, and looking at his second season just a little bit closer, one could argue that this man could have been an all-star this year. In 138 games, Kruk had 140 hits, the third most of his career, 20 home runs, and 91 RBIs, which would both be the second most in a season for his career, and like most of his career, he was an on-base machine with a 406 OBP that season. That year, Kruk was listed as a first baseman and a left fielder, so it makes sense as to why he did miss the cut, as St. Louis's Jack Clark got the nod at first base, and he wound up finishing third in the MVP race, while he was in the midst of by far and away the best year of his life, and the then 25-year-old Eric Davis, who has the best batting stance of all time. I'm sorry about it. Well, for him, he started the All-Star game and left in a season where he would finish 9th in the MVP race and won the Gold Glove and took home the Silver Slugger. And going a little bit deeper, Keith Hernandez was the backup first baseman who, funnily enough, much like Kruk, has had a wonderful post-MLB career in the booth. Players like Pedro Guerrero, Jeffrey Leonard, and Tim Raines, well, they would round out the left field selections. And is there anyone on that list that Kruk should have started over? Probably and possibly, but I don't want to argue history. So let's just put it this way. These guys got the All-Star nod because they had an elite season, and Kruk would have to work and wait his turn. Because down the line, Kruk would finish his career a 3-time All-Star and 3 times placed in the NL MVP voting. So, in the end, I'd say it evened out for him. However, 3.5 years after John Kruk debuted for the San Diego Padres, on June 2nd, 1989, they would trade him along with Randy Reddy to the Philadelphia Phillies for Chris James, and I would say that this is where Kruk's career really took off in terms of accolades and individual success. I say this because John Kruk was relatively the same player his whole career, and in a way, the Padres and Phillies seemed to play at the same level whenever Kruk played for these teams. And I have to be careful with my wording here, because the season that the Padres traded Kruk, well, they had their best season in years, finishing 89 and 73. And as for the Phillies, well, let's go over their records. But before I do that, do you want to see John Kruk and the boys in Philly highlight just how hot he is?
After a grueling off-season of conditioning, I'm already in mid-season shape. These guys are just jealous, especially Lenny. They work out all year long and they still can't look like me. I'm the only guy that can hit 300 8 months pregnant.
And in the famous words of John Kruk himself, quote, I'm not an athlete, I'm a baseball player. Because it shows, you know, baseball players don't have to be at the peak male physical form. Sometimes you just gotta be an absolute chiller like John Kruk, and everything else will come easy after that. Alright, taking a step back from spring training, Kruk's first season with the Phillies was nothing to write home about, as the 1989 Phillies went 67, 96, and 1. And well, due to injuries to Mike Schmidt's knees and back, which caused him to miss much of the 1988 season, after a poor start to the 1989 season, Schmidt chose to suddenly announce his retirement. And I'm sorry, a tie? Did I say there was a tie in baseball? All right, well, we got to go back and look into that. So let me look into this. On June 5th, when they hosted the Pittsburgh Pirates, with the score tied 3-3, the game ended due to rain after only 8 innings had been played. So that's a fun fact. And obviously, the MLB much later changed the rules to avoid ties from ever happening again. The 1990 Phillies were a little better but equally mediocre, as they finished 77 and 85 this year. In 1991, well, this was a big improvement for the Phillies, as they went 78 and 84, winning just one more game than the year prior. And 1992 was a step back, as the team continued to struggle in the early 90s with no signs of turning it around, as they went 70 and 92. With John Kruk going on David Letterman to talk about how the Phillies were going to suffer the rest of the season.
Are you optimistic for the rest of the season for your team's chances?
To finish the season?
Yeah. Do you think you have it in you to finish up the schedule?
I really do think we're going to suck it up and try to get through October.
Which is honestly impressive, because it's not every day you see, for example, let's say Mike Trout go on a talk show and say, you know what, the Angels aren't going to do that great once again, so just lock in and suffer with us. But again, that's just the type of guy John Kruk was. He didn't really give a damn at all. And however, for the Phillies, that's just sometimes how baseball is. You can't really see the signs, because the next season, the Phillies went 97 and 65 and went all the way to the World Series. However, they would lose to the Blue Jays in 4-2, and sometimes in baseball, right when you think you figured everything out, well, you haven't. Because in the 1994 season, the Phillies went 54 and 61 in a strike-shortened season. It was so weird for the Phillies. They had these one-off blue hats that Kruk and the boys considered to be so unlucky, they protested the hat to never have them wear them again. I want to provide this context because through all of this, as mentioned earlier, Kruk was an on-base machine and hit for contact with knowing how to work a walk just the same as he did in San Diego. It just wasn't until his years in Philadelphia did not only he shine, but he got credit for these achievements with 3 straight All-Star selections. And if you know John Kruk, you might know where I'm going to be headed with this story, talking about these All-Star games that he partook in. From 1991 to 1993, John Kruk was an All-Star in 3 straight years. Although Kruk did not play in the 91 All-Star game, I am sure he was being the ultimate glue guy in the dugout that day, because that's just the type of dude he's always been. The 92 All-Star game is where Kruk really proved that he belonged with the best, and funnily for him, he couldn't really understand why people wanted to watch him play though.
Amazing that fans want to see me play. It's a scary thought of the whole thing. What our society's come to these days, but you know, they want to see it, so I guess we have no choice but to go.
After subbing in for Tony Gwynn in right field, he went 2 for 2 at the plate after getting singles off Jeff Montgomery in the 8th and Dennis Eckersley in the 9th. However, that is boring compared to the 1993 All-Star game, because this time around, John Kruk was not playing in garbage time. He was starting at first base and batting cleanup for the NL All-Star team, because he is a known power guy, and batters like Barry Bonds were forced to hit second to make room for batters like John Kruk, baby. Randy Johnson was the second pitcher for the AL, and Randy's third batter faced was our very own John Kruk. This is speed versus power. It's the big unit versus hell, the big Kruk. And for the fans in attendance, this is exactly what you want. At bat, you got one of the biggest and funniest personalities, and a guy that can hit a baseball just as good as anyone, versus a pitcher that can throw 102, sling a slider just about as well as anyone. So, who would win? Well, I'll just let this first pitch speak for itself. John Kruk has obviously since spoken about this at bat, and more specifically this pitch, and said, quote, "At first I thought all I wanted to do was make contact, but after that first pitch, all I wanted to do is live, and I lived. So I had a good at-bat, end quote. And I do not exactly blame him for having this approach to this at-bat. In fact, his swings quite literally look like mine when facing Randy Johnson in MLB The Show. So maybe the game is a little bit accurate. And was Kruk playing his fear up for the All-Star game? Probably, as that's the amazing guy John Kruk was. But was he generally scared as hell? Also probably, and most likely definitely, as you don't get 102 above the head often.
Yeah, I was laughing too. Laughing out of fear, man. That scared the hell out of me.
I winked at him after the at-bat was over, and he came over here after the game was over, or after he was done in the game, and we just talked a little bit, and we left. And
I know I'll never see that again. I'm happy about it.
Kruk would go 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts in the All-Star game, with another strikeout coming later versus Jimmy Key. John Kruk rightfully belonged among the best because, well, he was one of the best in all of baseball. For this 3-year stretch, Kruk was able to bat .311, had 491 hits, 90 doubles, 45 homers, 247 RBIs, 270 walks, and just 275 strikeouts in 1,873 plate appearances. All this was good for a .407 on-base percentage. Think of it like this. John Kruk was the best hitter on a 1993 Phillies team that made it all the way to the World Series, the peak of his on-field baseball life. However, the very next year of 1994 was the last season John Kruk would play with the Philadelphia Phillies, and it came to a close in a rather heartbreaking fashion. During spring training in 1994, John Kruk was diagnosed with testicular cancer after an errant pickoff throw from a teammate Mitch Williams hit him in the groin and broke his protective cup. That was the only reason he went to the doctors to get checked for something, and he found out about having cancer, getting hit where the sun don't shine on a pickoff. However, in John Kruk fashion, he still found a way to have fun with this. He said he wished he went earlier because if he had found it sooner, he wouldn't have to, talk about his junk to the reporters. And as he left his media availability talking about his cancer diagnosis, he turned back to the reporters and said, and I quote, "Boy, this has been fun. Maybe in a couple weeks I can come down with hemorrhoids," end quote. I mean, you gotta love the heart. If you don't love the guy, you gotta love the heart at least. Other factors such as weight gain and the AstroTurf at Veterans Stadium streamlined his declining physical condition after the 1994 season. Kruk was granted free agency and shows the Chicago White Sox he would continue to hit at a high level, batting .308, much like he would do wherever the hell he played baseball. But in the first inning of the White Sox 8-3 loss to the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards on July 30th, he singled off Scott Erickson. Kruk would remove himself from the game and promptly retire as an active player due to chronic knee soreness. 2 days prior, John Kruk informed his teammates of his plans to retire, and Kruk would put out a short but impactful message to the media reading, quote, "The desire to compete at this level is gone, and when that happens, it is time to go," end quote. And just like that, one of baseball's underrated hitters was gone for the sport for good, or so we thought. Because this is a story of two sides, and welcome to the second part, and the reason I have fallen in love with John Kruk. After his baseball career, John Kruk, like many, have stayed around the game by writing books, acting in movies such as The Sandlot, Heading Home, and a Robert De Niro film titled The Fan. He would also get coaching gigs, and like many, would start broadcasting. But not before he pulled a prank on rookie Chase Utley to tell him he was like an illegal big leaguer of sorts.
They're going to fine the Phillies $250,000. You have to forfeit every game that Chase has participated in this year. You drive or fly here? I drove. You drove? That might help, but I think what Major League Baseball wants to see, they want to see a plane ticket to know that you were actually called by the Phillies. You didn't drive up here by yourself. Oh, gosh. You know what the biggest problem is with this whole thing? Do you honestly think Major League Baseball would make me a member of the
Kruk would work for ESPN for many years, and he also would be the broadcaster in MLB 2K10 through 2K13, and ultimately ended up at NBC Sports Philadelphia to join the TV broadcast team, and here's where I will pick this story up. We all know it. A personality as big as John Kruk's is very hard to keep under wraps for long. Hell, you've seen that mullet, and you just knew he'd be an all-time baseball character from that alone. And it's really hard to pinpoint what makes John Kruk so good in the booth, because he's not your typical broadcaster. His style is unique to him. He seems to talk about anything but baseball for 70 to 80% of the game, so I can understand if some baseball purists do not like this way of going about calling a baseball game. But for me, there is nothing better than turning on the TV and hearing things like, quote, "He caught his girlfriend cheating and burned the car with both of them in it," end quote. Yeah, that is a real John Kruk quote from this season actually, when he randomly out of nowhere in the 7th inning versus the Padres on a Saturday evening he told a story about when he was playing winter ball in Mexico. His team would play an exhibition game every year against a team of inmates at a prison. And if that sounds a little bit insane, you're right. It is a little bit insane, but that's just who John Kruk is. So listen to this.
You know, he spoke English too. I said, you don't have no gear? He goes, no. No mask, no nothing. I'm like, well, I'm not getting hit with this dude ain't got no catcher's gear on.
I said, it lefty pitch, it threw like hard. That's what reminded me of it. The kid threw hard, this pitcher. So I asked the catcher, I said, what did he do? He's out, he found his girlfriend cheating. He burned up her car with her and her boyfriend. Oh my gosh.
And the best part about that is Tom McCarthy staying professional while John Kruk is going on. And he's just like, yeah, there's a double by Trey Turner. You know, he's doing the same job as John Kruk is, but a little bit more professional, if you will. Or how about last season when John Kruk publicly stated his fear of heights and said that if Kyle Schwarber hit a home run against Miles Michaelis, he'd go in the arch in St. Louis.
Well, if he hits a home run in this at bat, well, I can't go tomorrow. What time's that thing open?
And well, the very next pitch on a 2-2 count, Kyle Schwarber absolutely ropes one over the right field wall.
Blasted to the right field corner, and it is gone!
Forcing John Kruk to go visit the arch, or so we thought. Turns out Kruk never went and will never go, chalking it up to his fear of heights. And sure, predictions are nothing new from announcers in baseball, but there's just a little bit extra oomph, if you will, when it comes from John Kruk. And I don't know how to explain it, and that's what makes him so magical. He's just this dude in the booth, and it's amazing. And as you guys also know, home announcers have always and will always be very biased. And whether we like to admit it or not, John Kruk is definitely at the top of this list. So when he is actively yelling at Nick Castellanos in the booth to not catch a foul ball and proceeding to be annoyed when the ball was caught, and then immediately showing jubilation once Nick makes a phenomenal double play, just shows you that John Kruk is a true fan like any of us. Because if you know, Cassie isn't that great at defense. And this play here had everyone stunned.
Didn't start today. Fly ball, right field. Castellanos is over, near foul territory. What should he do? He makes the catch. Coming home is Williams. The throw to the plate. It's a beauty. Yes. He is out at home plate.
In fact, I'm pretty sure I had the same exact reaction when watching this play. He also has this very uncanny ability to be the first one to cheer for big home runs, like insanely fast, such as the iconic Bryce Harper walk-off grand slam versus the Cubs. You've all seen it, but you probably haven't realized where John Kruk is in the clip, so let me play it real quick.
With the bases loaded and one out.
Oh my God!
Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here!
Yeah, that's John Kruk saying, oh my God, maybe before the ball even touched the bat, which I don't know how he does it, but he continuously does this for so many big home runs, and I guess that's why he was so good at the plate. A quick reaction time can only help you in baseball. Now for this next one, I'm gonna play the clip as I'm talking, as I'm sure I have been with all of these, and it's obviously right now muted, but I just want you to remember your reaction to seeing this, because I'm pretty sure you and John Kruk had the same exact one.
That's a good shot there. Sorry. I said that out loud.
And I mean, come on, this dude is literally like if you and I were given a mic and said, hey, commentate this game. His ability to say whatever the hell comes to mind is maybe my favorite thing about him, because it keeps these games fun. The mixture of being a homer and not giving a damn is the perfect mix for me as a Phillies fan, but I understand that outsiders may not enjoy this as much. This next clip here demonstrates this mix perfectly. When Tigers fans were chanting overwrite it at Bryce Harper, Kruk spoke up and said probably what every Philly fan was thinking.
You would like to have him. You would like to have him. He'd be your best player. Whoops.
As I mentioned earlier, it truly is hard to describe what makes him so great in the booth, and if these examples don't exactly help you see it, then you may never understand the legend of John Kruk, and that's okay. I just hope one day maybe you will see it, and furthermore, I hope that this video highlights just who John Kruk is both as a ball player and as a fan in the booth. And I could go on and on about some of these clips that I have found, but I don't want to bore you guys too much as the video is already getting pretty long, but the unhinged and unfiltered content in the booth is what separates him from the rest, in my opinion. And sure, John Kruk will never be as good as a Mike Breen or a Michael Kay, And that's alright with me, because those guys aren't going to get touched. But between the rest, John Kruk is the best of the rest, and I really hope this video proves why. And listen, I'm just 21 years of age, so I've really got to know John Kruk through these broadcasts, and that's what's really made me fall in love with his character, and since obviously has made me want to do this video and deep dive on his life. And in case anyone was wondering, Kruk seems to be healthier and better than ever at the age of 63 after battling cancer and weight issues. But for now, that's where this story stands, and for me, well, I'm excited to see where else this story can go, as John Kruk is truly a treat to have in the booth, and his playing career is a fun one to look back on and highlight, and I really hope you have all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hello, darling.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.